Never rain.
All right, let's kick it off. Thank you, everybody, for joining on this Tuesday morning. For today, we are wanting to look at building a health score with Totango. For today's agenda, a couple of things that we will be walking through. First of all, we're going to start with Totango's health philosophy, then diving a little deeper into health discovery. Then in two parts, we're going to look at what good looks like and then what great looks like. And then to round it out, we're going to finish up with some key considerations when it comes to building your health score and then finish up with some questions. In regards to who will be leading this today, you'll be joined by myself, Kate Whitaker. I am the go-to-market strategy and execution manager here at Tango. I've been here for a little under 6 months and work across sales, marketing, and customer success to lead that strategy and the vision for the team. And I'll hand it over to Demiso to introduce himself.
Hello, folks. Yeah, my name is Demiso, and I am a customer success manager here with Totango. Have been with the company since about the middle of last year, and I primarily work with customers that are enabled with our Catalyst platform. And I think the conversation we're going to have today is super relevant, super timely. Been having a lot of discussions with customers about either bringing a health score in from an external system into the Catalyst platform, or maybe there's a health score that has already been enabled, a V1 health score, but based on some feedback and analysis, we want to kind of revamp and reiterate. And so I've been having a lot of those conversations lately over the last several months. And so I think really timely discussion. So really excited to dive in.
Awesome. So let's kick it off and dive into Totango's health philosophy. I'll kick it back to you, Demiso.
Perfect. So, yeah, so for starters, folks, I'm going to talk about how we think about customer health here at Tatango, what our health philosophy is. And so there's a couple of things that we'll touch on here. We'll touch on, what is the goal of a health score? What are the essential building blocks or component parts of a health score? How do we think about designing that score from scratch? And also, how do we think about segmenting our health score based on the business. So starting with what is the goal of a health score? So the way that we think about that here at Tatango is through these key metrics or priorities that you see here: reducing churn, identifying expansion opportunities, and identifying referenceable customers. And so these are aligned with our top priorities as an organization. So from our executive team and all the way from our CEO, like these are things that are top of mind and top priority for us. All of these buckets sort of align to revenue. And so the health score, when we think about designing a health score, it really should surface triggers and be made up of inputs that enable your CSMs to have an opportunity to have an impact against those top business outcomes. And so that's kind of how we think about it. It's super, super straightforward, but a really important place to start, because once you've built your health score, you really want to be able to look at it and compare it against the things that are most important to you, and we want to make sure that it is actually driving those metrics forward. And so some example questions that we might think about on our end as we're thinking about designing our health score or redesigning our health score are things like, hey, are we threaded across the organization? How many stakeholders do we have relationships with? Do we have relationships with executive level stakeholders? Are we able to be strategic with those folks? What does usage look like? Are folks logging in? Has there been a dip in product usage? Is the customer leveraging the features that we know add the most value to the partnership? Things like, hey, are we capturing business outcomes? And are we making progress against those outcomes? And so those are some of the questions that we might be thinking about as we're designing our health score or redesigning our health score. And all of those questions will kind of align to these goals that you see here of reducing churn, identifying expansion opportunities, and identifying referenceable customers. And so these might align perfectly with what's important to you, or perhaps you have some slightly different goals or main objectives. But coming back to the goal of your health score is it should really align to those top business metrics or business outcomes. So when we think about the essentials of customer health, or another way to think about this is, what are the key component parts to a customer health score? Three things that we're thinking about. Number one, is it built on your customer data? The customer Number two, the health score should be simple to understand, and number three, it should be actionable. And so when we think about customer data, it's really about making sure that you have the inputs to actually establish an accurate um, gauge or health of your customer. So we're thinking about things like product usage, we're thinking about engagement, we're thinking about relationship, and making sure that the data inputs are there in your CRM, they're in your CSP, so that we can build the health profile based off of those data points. And when you think about it being simple, really as a customer success manager, I need to be able to look at a health score and very quickly get clues as to what might need to be addressed with the customer. It's not something that I want to have to look at and take 15-20 minutes to kind of figure out. It really needs to be something that if I have a call at 3:30, I want to be able to pop open a health score at 3:20 and be able to get some really quick signals as to what might need to be addressed with this customer. And we'll show you some examples of what this can look like in some future slides here. But then that kind of leads me to the next piece, which is it should be clear what action needs to be taken. And so, again, as I'm prepping for a call, I might have call notes with agenda items or takeaways that came out of our previous conversation. And so generally, in my next call with that customer, I'm going to be updating my new agenda with threading from previous topics that have come up. But if I'm also taking a moment to look at my customer's health score, really it should be able to help me add agenda items that allow me to have a more strategic conversation. So for example, I might pop open a health score and notice that, hey, there's some low product usage here. And so in addition to the items that are carrying over from our last conversation, maybe I'll add that as an agenda item. Let's talk about product usage. Let's dig into what might be happening. What might be the blockers? Is it, change management? Is it, are there technical roadblocks, things like that? So again, like if the playbook, if the health score is actionable, it should allow me as a customer success manager to take a quick peek, and then just update my agenda with that customer and have a more strategic conversation. That to me is an actionable health score. And just I guess further on that topic, so CS managers that are on the call, if you're having one-on-ones with your CS team, and you have a health score enabled, great item to, like, in those one-on-ones, just ask your CSMs, hey, like when you're prepping for your calls, is the health score helping you have better conversations? Is it helping you, like, set up a better agenda or better talking points with that customer? So great opportunity to get a lot of feedback from the team as to is the health score, does it have the data that the team needs? Is it simple and is it actionable? So great opportunity there in your one-on-ones to kind of get some of that feedback.
Love that.
Yeah, so switching gears into designing health step by step. So the way that we think about this at Totango, there's really four key components, starting with discovery. So analyzing churn, referenceable customers. From that analysis, figuring out, hey, what is most important here? What are the key themes? What are that's going to feed into the categories or dimensions that kind of make up the health score. And then number three, attributes. So underneath those categories, what data do you have available to tell that story? Are there missing data points that need to be pulled in? Are there data points that need to be maybe better automated so that they're up to date and accurate? And then from there, putting weights to each category. And that'll kind of come back to your churn analysis. That should give you an idea of which components are more important than others. So for example, you might say that less than product usage, maybe actually number of support tickets is a better indicator of whether a customer is at risk or not. And so maybe we have under a dimension or category is like support tickets and SLAs, and maybe there's a higher weight to that category over and above product usage. So it's just as an example, but your analysis is going to kind of give you those insights so that you know how to kind of tweak and build your health score model. So under discovery, I think it's really about looking at your past customers. What are the trends? What are the commonalities that are coming up? Making sure that you're not missing. Looking at your referenceable customers, so the customers that are really implemented really, really well. What are the commonalities there? Because there's going to be probably lots of insights that you can capture from that as well. Yeah, dimensions, breaking that up into what are the key insights, what are the key categories that are coming out of that research, and then looking at the data that you have to tell the story, and then adding weights to those components as well. So that's a really good process for if you're creating a new health score, or even if you're just you have a V1 health score and you're doing a bit of a revamp. Great process to help kind of trigger that flow. And then after you've done that, the other thing that you really will want to think about is segmentation. So this is going to be unique based on your business and your model. But some common ways that you might segment your business is maybe it's by contract value, maybe it's by life cycle stage, perhaps it's by customer tier. So maybe you've got SMB, mid-market, enterprise, digital segment. For each of those segments, you might have, going back to the churn analysis and the categories or dimensions that you've identified, you might have unique insights. You might say, for our digital customers, usage is actually the most important component. For your enterprise, more strategic customers, it's really about have we captured their business outcomes, and are we making progress against those business outcomes? And so just an example, but segmentation, definitely really important, because your health score model might need to be unique based on how you break out your customers. And so in order for those health scores to be as accurate and as actionable as possible, something that we definitely want to think about. And then more and more conversations that I've been having with customers are related to expanding their suite of products. And so that's also becoming a more common way to think about customer segmentation is, hey, what are the products that we've actually sold to this customer? And maybe there's a unique set of dimensions or categories that are really important based on the products that have been implemented. And something that's not included here, but another way to think about this is also geographic segmentation. So you might have North American customers, and maybe the health model is unique to those customers in comparison to your customers that are in Europe or in APAC. And so another way to think about this as well is perhaps geographic segmentation as well.
Oh. So looking at what a health score can actually measure, it's looking at nearly all of the interactions that you have with your customers when being able to determine that score. So there's a couple of key categories. The first one is looking at product usage and adoption. So what's the volume and the depth of that use? Second is looking at license utilization. So what percentage of the sold licenses and services are actually being used by your customer? Third, let's look at business results. So is the customer actually getting the value that they signed up for? And taking a step back from that, how did we understand the value that it was sold on? Why did that customer make a purchasing decision? And how are we tracking towards them achieving that value and iterating that goal over time as they look to achieve that, or potentially mold it as different objectives come up? Fourth is looking at that engagement. So things like support, billing, marketing, customer success engagements. How are those going? Is there potentially a lack of engagement there? Or are you over-indexing on certain departments and needs? Then let's look at advocacy. Is this customer a brand advocate? Do we want to use them at different events to be able to speak? Would we use them as a reference? And then finally, looking at customer satisfaction. Are you getting feedback from your customers with things like CSAT or your CSM sentiment and satisfaction scores? What is that feedback? What does that look like? And how are we using that to iterate over time? And then tying all of these metrics together, the health formula can produce a couple of different types of results. So the first is a green customer. So all the thresholds for usage, utilization, business results, and engagement and advocacy are met. Then you've got a yellow customer. They're only meeting some of the green criteria, but not all of them. So there's a clear need for improvement, but on the other hand, nothing is burning yet. And then finally, you've got a red customer. That customer is flagged in at least one of those categories, and there could be a sharp decline in usage, or the customer is a detractor, or potentially not paying their bills, and so forth. So, with this model as a health formula, you've got the ability to color each customer, and you can easily communicate the reasoning behind each health classification. So, looking at health discovery, I'll hand it back to you, Demiso.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. Yeah, so thinking about health discovery, this does kind of tie back to the churn analysis, referenceable customer analysis. But we've essentially come up with five key categories that are great to consider when you are building your model. I will say that these categories may not be exhaustive, or particular to your business, you might say, well, actually, support and operations, we don't necessarily need to consider that as part of our health model. But I think what's helpful here is if you are going about a churn analysis process, having this as maybe a reference point could be super, super helpful. And so a couple of key things that we've identified, number one being service utilization. So how much of the sold product is actually being utilized, similar but slightly different to product usage and engagement, which we can see on the bottom right there. So really thinking about the volume and depth of use. Are users logging in? Or, are they using the application regularly? The other thing I generally tend to think about is, are they using the right things? Are they using the components that are actually going to add the most value to the partnership and with their implementation? Skipping back over to the left-hand side there, customer satisfaction. So, what feedback are you getting from customers or interactions? So that could be from, your regular touch points. It could be from strategic conversations, maybe feedback after a business review. It could be from CSAT or, surveys that are going out so you can capture that feedback async from your customers. And then support and operations. So, support tickets, is there a high volume of support tickets? Are we meeting our SLAs? Is there a high volume of critical support tickets? So based on the tier of those tickets, like how many of those tier 0 or tier 1 support tickets are coming in? Training as well. So are there lots of interactions where the customer just needs more training, they just need more enablement, maybe it's more change management? And then invoicing can be a big one as well. I've definitely had that conversation with a handful of customers that use this as a signal. So, have we sent an invoice and maybe not gotten paid on that invoice? Or, if there's a delay in when we get paid on that invoice, that may be a signal that maybe the customer's health is at risk. And then finally, business results. So this is becoming more and more common, I think, within our business and throughout our customer base, is really capturing business outcomes from the customer and tracking whether or not the customer is getting the value that they wanted to achieve when they signed up. And so this is kind of, really aligned with measuring customer goals, tracking customer goals, engaging in success planning, and I think really threading across the organization and making sure there's alignment in what are the customers' expectations? What do they expect to get out of your platform? Do we have a plan in place? And then, are we making progress against that plan? So these are some common, again, categories that we've identified just through research and through our own business and working with customers that are pretty common. And so I think, yeah, just a really, really great reference point as you're going about your churn analysis process to have these to evaluate the dimensions and categories that you come up with. Underneath those categories, those key dimensions and categories, just a snapshot here of example data points that can feed into those categories. So we don't need to get too into the weeds here. Every business is going to have maybe unique data points that they're capturing, or that tell their story or that are important to their business. But again, I think this is just another really great reference point. So you can just see some examples here under some different categories. So product usage, some data points that you might, want to have in your system, usage frequency, license utilization. Great opportunity there with license utilization to signal when a customer is, maybe there's a potential upsell or expansion opportunity that we can add to the pipeline. Product usage, obviously great for just, tracking adoption. That's going to be unique in how that's measured. Things like time spent, logins, and then so on and so forth. So for each category, this can just serve as like some example data points that you might want to think about including in your health groups or your dimensions to tell that health story for your customers. So hopefully this is helpful, just to kind of compare the data points that you might have to some health measures that might be helpful to create a better, more complete picture of your customer health story.
Awesome. So there's two different ways that you're able to manage your health. And the first one is looking at account health. These models are typically less complex and are good in a couple of different scenarios. The first one is you need to execute quickly. Second is every health indicator is of equal importance. Third is teams want to be able to pinpoint problems immediately because accounts going into poor health if there's any poor threshold that is met. And then finally, you want to automatically exclude metrics without a value from the calculation. And account health is defined based on a color indicator using the formula of good, poor, or average. So good means that all attributes with value are defined as good. Poor is at least one of the attributes with value is defined as poor. And then average is none of the attributes with value fall into that poor definition, but not all of the attributes are classified as good. Now, the second more sophisticated model is looking at multidimensional health. And multidimensional health models are more sophisticated and typically best in a few more scenarios. So you need to understand issues at a dimensional level, not just based on a single metric. Not all health indicators are equal. So you want to be able to fine tune your calculations using weights for individual metrics and for each dimension. You may want a numerical score with the option to customize the scale for good, average, and poor. And you want to be able to choose how to process those metrics that may not have a value. Multidimensional health is defined based on a color indicator, but it also has a numerical score as well. And score values are based on a predefined weight for each of the dimension in that health profile. So good may be that 100 points are met, average is 60 points are met, and red is if the poor criteria is considered 0. And it depends on your business, your sophistication, your level of data, and what information is available to you on which one of those is best for you. Potentially, you start with an account health score and then move into the multidimensional when you're ready. So let's look at what good looks like with Catalyst and Totango.
Okay, awesome. So, what I want to do now is just go through a couple of examples. So put yourself in the shoes of a CSM with a health score enabled. What might this look like? So, this example, we'll start with a Catalyst example with a standard health score, and then we'll look at an example in Totango with the multi-dimensional health score model that Kate just mentioned. So looking at this example, we're looking at a customer here. We can see on the left-hand side here that, the customer is healthy as per the health score model, got a overall score of 8.1. We can see how that's trended over the last, 6 months. And then on the right-hand side, we can see the dimensions or the health score group inputs that we've included in this health score profile. So the nice thing about this is as a customer success manager, as I said, preparing for a call, and I have a few minutes to just peek at the health score before I jump into a call with the customer. If I was to look at this, I can, really quickly identify that while this is a healthy customer, we don't actually have any referenceable contacts. You can see that's got a neutral score of 4, and the color's yellow at the top there. The actual value is that 0. So there's no referenceable contacts at the customer. So that's a potential opportunity for me to try and move in that direction. Maybe we can think about being more threaded within the organization. Maybe I can, jump onto the call and just validate who are the exec sponsors with the customer, who are the senior leaders that are invested in the implementation of the platform, and maybe we can make some introductions to executives on our side. That might get us towards or moving in the direction of capturing a referenceable some referenceable contacts. And then if we look down to number of playbooks, it's highlighted in pink there because the most negative it's the most negative input that's, I guess, sort of bringing the score down. It's got a negative score of 2, and the actual value is 6. So, we know that, customers that are actually, in the platform leveraging playbooks, we're actually automating manual workflows. And so the more playbooks that we have enabled is a good indication that we've actually added a ton of value. We've actually taken processes that are super manual, and we've automated a lot of that, or at the very least, we've consolidated and brought a lot of that work into one space. And so if I was prepping for this call as a CSM and I just quickly peek at this, another item that I might add to my agenda is, hey, in addition to the items that we have to chat about today, I just also noticed that you only have 6 playbooks enabled. Best practice is to have whatever it might be, 10 to 15 at least. Or the question might be, hey, I can assume that there's some workflows that we haven't actually automated yet, and maybe it's an opportunity to uncover what some of the blockers are there. Maybe it's not having somebody to build those playbooks. Maybe it's maybe there are data blockers. Maybe there's data not being pulled in that's preventing us from being able to set up or establish more playbooks. But I guess case in point being here is a CSM, like this is a really great way for me to get some really valuable insight before I jump on a call with this customer. And it doesn't take any more than, a couple of seconds for me to kind of identify some points that might need to be addressed. And so we can see that the groups here, we're looking at relationship, we're looking at engagement, we're looking at actions. So in general, overall, just to kind of cover what the health score is looking at, we're looking at, hey, do we have referenceable contacts? When was our last call? How many main contacts do we have with the customer? Under engagement, we're looking at, are they, users in the community? How many support tickets do we have? Users logging in? How often are they logging in? And then actions, we're looking at, hey, are we leveraging playbooks? Do we have product usage data? Those are kind of key things, key indicators that we know through our analysis are kind of are top of mind things that we want to address. I did notice that someone raised their hand. I don't know if we want to pause and answer that question right away, or Kate, maybe do we want to wait till the end for questions? You let me know.
No, if I think it was Priyanka, if you want to be able to come off mute or ask a question in the Q&A or the chat, feel free to do so if there is something that is topical right now. But otherwise, we can answer all of your questions at the end. Cool. We can keep moving.
Keep moving. Okay, perfect. We'll jump to the next slide here. So this is the same customer, same health score. Just scroll down so you can see that there's 2 additional categories here, or dimensions. So we've got customer value and we've got horizons. So horizons is just, hey, have we documented the customer's goals? How many goals do we have? Customer value is, hey, are we making progress against the goals that we identified? And so again, the last thing that I might add to my agenda item if I was preparing for my next call with this customer is, I might say, hey, we established these goals way back when. I don't actually have documented whether we're making progress against those goals or not. Let's unpack that. Let's have a conversation around that, so we can so we can get to clarity on whether we're actually helping move the needle there. So yeah, another way that we can really enhance as a CSM our conversations and be more strategic.
Awesome. One of the questions that came up was around the CSM overview with the checklist. Where is that available? And I think it's worth prefacing that this is within Catalyst, but where can you find that in the platform, Demiso?
The CSM overview. So sorry, where was the CSM overview checklist that we're referring
I'm
to?
guessing on the previous slide.
Oh,
Um,
it's where do we see this layout? Yeah, so this is if you're in Catalyst and you're building a layout, this is it's a module that you can select. So it's a health score module that you can add to any layout at the account level. So this is not at the organization or company level. This is if we're looking at an account and we're building account layouts, we can add a health score module. So definitely follow up with our support team, or if you have a CSM, follow up with that person so they can help you make sure that you add that to your layouts. But yeah, pretty simple and straightforward to add this if you have built your health score in Catalyst.
awesome. Cool. Looking
All
at
right. Yeah, switching gears to Totango. So Totango, some really cool functionality that we can leverage here. So as Kate mentioned, we do have the multi-dimensional health model in Totango for understanding issues or health at a dimensional level. So, in this example, we're at the parent account here. And so, but there's actually a parent account, and you can see that there are three companies within that parent account. So we can think of those as child accounts or sub accounts. And so we actually can have a health score model that is calculated at the parent level. And then for each of the three companies or sub accounts that are underneath that parent account, we can have a unique health score profile within each of those companies as well. And then the third layer is product health. So we can actually look at specific products that have been sold to the customer. We can look at like specific product health for each and any one of those products. And so we're looking at a numerical score here with a good, average, and poor rating, as Kate mentioned. And so in this case, at a parent level, we're looking at poor usage, like no usage here. Either a couple of things are happening. Either we're not getting any usage, or there's maybe a data issue of data not being connected properly. But as a CSM, I can see really quickly here that I'm going to want to kind of dig in a little bit deeper into what's happening with usage with this customer. So if we jump to the next slide, you won't see it, I guess, from this transition, but we've actually clicked into one of the three companies or one of the three child accounts. And so this now is kind of looking similar to what we were looking at in the Catalyst section. So we've got our dimensions, we've got support, we've got work, voice of the customer, risk, billing. These are the categories that we've identified as being super, super important that we want CSMs to be able to action against. So for support, it's, hey, how many support tickets have been submitted? What's the severity level? Work is in a reference to like, do we have an action plan with this customer to make movement against the most important items? Voice of the customer is just customer feedback. Risk is a CSM risk score. So that could be a numerical score. It could be a pick list, red, green, yellow. And then billing, have we successfully received payment on invoices that have been sent out? And then again, we can see that usage metric is really the one that's standing out that I might want to address as a CSM on my next call. And then on usage, if we skip to the next slide, now this is the third layer here of this multidimensional health score. So now we're looking at specific product usage. So you could have multiple product health scores within your model. So this is looking at a particular product specific to the customer. And some of the usage metrics or value metrics that are included in this model are things like active days. So how many days were users active on average in the last 14 days? What does engagement look like? And then license utilization. So again, mentioned that, maybe a potential opportunity to recognize potential expansion opportunities as well. So yeah, so definitely some exciting components here with the multidimensional health within Totango. You can kind of structure it based on that segmentation. And then in summary, just a really great opportunity as a CSM to just have as an additional touch point for me to help prepare for my upcoming call and for me to be more strategic with the customer. So that's kind of the end goal of a customer health score, is to really help those CSMs have more strategic conversations. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's it.
So taking it a layer deeper, and I guess that next iteration of what does great look like? And wanted to start with, in the spirit of sharing examples, I wanted to walk through some innovation that we've had at Totango and how we can support organizations like yourself in taking that next step when it comes to AI when you're ready. So, towards the end of last year, we launched our own AI solution called Unison. Now, Unison is a customer intelligence engine that's focused on a couple of key areas like churn intelligence, expansion, ideal customer profile by estate, and ultimately using predictive AI to get to your desired outcome. And it can be a standalone solution, or it can be bundled into your current Totango product stack that you have today. Now, we didn't want to have another place for your teams and your CSMs to live. So, at its core, Unison is an engine. We want to be able to analyze your data and use AI to generate the insights that we send to the tools that your team is already using today. That's going to help you get the most value out of an AI solution. Ultimately, Unison is focused on helping you easily access rapid customer insights that are going to help inform your company strategy. But before I expand further on the ideal state of AI and the value that it can provide, I wanted to take a step back and just talk through how AI models work in comparison to how you would traditionally build a health score. So, what we like to call the human model is essentially you and your team, you sit in a room and debate over what matters when it comes to an account score. So, think things like a compliance score, the number of logins, all the factors that Demisa has talked about today, and really understanding what are those factors that make up a healthy customer. Traditionally, you would say a compliance score may matter 25% and customer logins matter 50%. Those weights are the same across accounts, segments, and across all points in time. Now, with AI models, they start off sounding the same, but determining the factors that matter, it is all different. Each account will have different weights, and the same account will be weighted differently at different points in time. So we can have factor A today that's weighted 25% of that score, and then that same factor 2 months later is going to be totally inconsequential at determining whether a customer is healthy or not. That is AI working day in and day out to evaluate how healthy a customer is based on the data they currently have or the data that they're receiving, or inversely not receiving. AI-driven models are focused on adapting dynamically, so tailoring that health score based on customer data and recognizing the different factors that matter differently for each customer and situation. So ultimately, a human model is a rule-based static engine approach to determining health, whereas with AI, it's something that is constantly in flux in terms of how we're evaluating customers, what data is available, and actually getting evaluated to determine the health of a customer. So, as we take a step deeper into what AI can do and the value it can deliver, I wanted to start with predictive analytics and personalization at scale. So, predictive analytics is focused on leveraging that historical and real time data to forecast future customer behaviors and outcomes. By analyzing different patterns and trends, businesses can identify the potential early warning signs of customer dissatisfaction or disengagement, and allowing you to enable that proactive intervention where necessary. So, for instance, let's say there's been a drop in product usage or a decline in the engagement metrics that can signal potential churn. What you're able to do is prompt that preemptive measure like personalized outreach or targeted support to be able to step in as soon as possible. Those predictive analytics shift the focus from reactive problem solving to that proactive customer success strategy that's going to ensure that the issues are addressed before they escalate and become a bigger problem than they are. This capability not only enhances your customer retention, but also helps identify those opportunities for growth and those expansion opportunities that Demiso identified, whether that's cross-sell or upsell to the customers who are ready based on those behavioral patterns. So by integrating predictive analytics into your health scoring, you're able to make data-driven decisions that align with customer needs and business goals. AI also enables that unparalleled level of personalization by being able to analyze those vast data sets to be able to uncover those individual preferences or behaviors and engagement patterns. Through machine learning algorithms, you can create dynamic health scores that adapt to each customer's individual journey. This level of personalization not only allows you to build stronger customer relationships by being able to manage interactions that feel relevant and meaningful, but AI also ensures that there's consistency across the different channels that you engage with your customers across. So by scaling your personalization efforts through AI, you're able to deliver individualized care to your large customer base and being able to reduce that manual effort on your teams. I also wanted to look at insight automation and mitigating bias and how it's important to consider those as you're building your AI into your health score. So AI automates the aggregation and analysis of data from multiple different sources. So whether it's your CRM, any product analytics platforms, and your support tools, and being able to simplify that into a unified view. Ultimately, what this is going to do is help eliminate those silos and ensure that your health scores are based on the most up-to-date information. So for example, let's say sentiment analysis, being able to evaluate your customer communications to detect emotional cues like frustration or satisfaction, which are then factored into your health score. Also, those AI-driven automation trigger workflows based on changes in health scores. So for instance, if a customer's score drops below a certain threshold, the system can automatically schedule a check-in call or potentially look at escalating that to a manager. Again, what this is going to do is reduce that manual workload while ensuring there's a timely response to any potential risks. But one of the challenges with AI-driven systems is the potential for bias in algorithms that's due to incomplete or unbalanced data. But advanced AI models are increasingly designed to be able to mitigate these biases by incorporating a variety of diverse data sets and continually refining the algorithms. So, by addressing that bias proactively, you're able to ensure that your health score models are fair and inclusive, and it's going to ensure that you're fostering trust among your customer base. This is particularly important for organizations that operate across those diverse markets, where cultural differences or regional differences are going to potentially influence that customer engagement. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to touch on was the importance of that continuous learning. How are you adapting and evolving your health score over time? AI systems excel at learning from new data and evolving alongside changing customer behaviors. So, unlike those static scoring models that require manual updates, AI-driven health scores dynamically adjust as they gather more insights from ongoing interactions. This adaptability ensures that your health score remains relevant and actionable as business environments and customer expectations change. That continuous learning also ensures that you're able to experiment with different metrics and refining your scoring models without disrupting operations. So by embracing these trends, you have the opportunity to unlock the full power of AI-enhanced health scoring. These advancements not only improve your operational efficiency, but it's going to help you deepen those customer relationships through proactive, personalized engagement and ultimately help you achieve your business goals like reducing churn. Now, before we round out the conversation, we wanted to wrap with a couple of key considerations when you go into thinking about how to build out your health score and that evolvement over time. The first one is having a lack of clear objectives. It's one of the most common pitfalls in establishing an effective health scoring system from the outset. And without a well-defined set of goals, it can be difficult to determine the appropriate metrics or the data sources and what are the scoring methodologies to employ. Good health scoring can point you in a variety of different directions, like prioritizing sales and customer success, resources towards certain opportunities, or pinpointing areas for growth and expansion within your current accounts. But attempting to accomplish all of this simultaneously can lead to a convoluted and unproductive scoring system. It's crucial to make sure that you're aligning your stakeholders from different departments, whether that's sales, marketing, customer success, as well as your executive leadership team, to establish a unified set of objectives. So what this is going to do in having a collaborative approach is it ensures that your health score addresses the specific needs and priorities of the organization rather than just having a one-size-fits-all solution. And clear objectives not only guide the development of the scoring system, but it also helps to facilitate that interpretation and actionability of the results. When everyone understands that underlying goal or goals, it becomes really easy to identify and prioritize the different accounts that require immediate attention, being able to allocate resources effectively, and measure that success of the scoring system against the organizational level KPIs. It's also a common pitfall of having incomplete data sources. So having an accurate health score really relies heavily on the quality and completeness of the data used. Relying on incomplete or inaccurate data can lead to skewed results, which ultimately is going to undermine the effectiveness of your efforts. And potentially one of the issues that contributes to this is not gathering data from all of the potentially relevant sources. Health scores should take into account a wide range of factors, things like customer interactions, product usage, financial metrics, and everything else we've discussed today. But if you're only looking at a subset of this data, you're potentially going to miss out on some important signals that could impact your overall assessment. It's also crucial to have robust data quality checks in place. Even if you're gathering data from multiple different sources, if that data is riddled with errors or inconsistencies, it can lead to potentially unreliable results. Look to implement processes when it comes to things like data validation and cleansing and standardization to ensure that all of the information you're collecting and utilizing is as accurate and as consistent as possible. Then looking at automation, it can be really easy to put plug and plays and workflows in place. And while automation can be really powerful when it comes to your health score, an over-reliance on automation can lead to potential downsides. So automated systems, no matter how sophisticated, cannot fully capture the nuances and complexities of customer relationships and different business dynamics. One of the primary risks of over-reliance on automation is the potential for inaccurate or incomplete scoring. Automation might overlook critical qualitative factors, so things like customer sentiment and industry trends, and those unique business circumstances, which can really impact an account's health. It's important to have checks and balances in place and to have that human oversight and validation through people like your CSM team to be able to understand and how to interpret that information with a grain of salt and be able to make it actionable. A balanced approach that combines the efficiency of automation with that nuanced judgment and contextual understanding of the experienced professionals in your customer success organization is essential for establishing an effective and reliable health scoring system. The last piece I wanted to touch on was stagnant models. Health scoring is not a one and done exercise. It's something that should be ongoing, that requires consistent and continuous monitoring, refinement, and updating. Business landscapes, customer needs, and market dynamics, now more than ever, are constantly evolving, and your model needs to be able to adapt accordingly to ensure that it's remaining relevant and effective. One of the biggest challenges and pitfalls for organizations is neglecting that continuous refinement. Stagnant models quickly become outdated, and they really fail to accurately reflect the current state of a customer and the relationships and that true account health. This can lead to potentially wrong decisions being made, missed opportunities, and ultimately it's going to have a negative impact on your customer retention and revenue. To avoid this, make sure that you're regularly reviewing and updating your health score criteria, the different weights and thresholds. Make sure that you're engaging with your different teams like sales, customer success, and product to be able to gather those insights and that feedback on changing customer needs, potentially any emerging trends, and new factors that might influence health. By embracing a culture of continuous improvement and regularly refining and updating your health scoring model, you're going to ensure that it remains valuable and effective for managing customer relationships, identifying risks and opportunities, and ultimately helping you drive revenue growth.
Amazing. So just to kind of wrap up with some key takeaways, um, we've talked a lot about churn analysis, as Kate just mentioned. Health scores are not one and done; they need to be revamped. Sometimes it's just a simple, let's add an additional category dimension. Sometimes it's like a full revamp. But yeah, thinking about who's churned this quarter, what was their health like, why did they churn, who's been expanding, who's been providing references, why, what are those commonalities, making sure you're thinking about the weights of your dimensions and attributes, adjusting as needed. Um, and then really thinking about your customer data. So like, do you have the data points that can feed into those dimensions? So do you have those attributes? Are they in your CRM? Are they in your CSP? Can they be added to your health score profile? How are you segmenting your customers? And then the last thing I'll just call out is, really thinking about AI. So if you have a human-derived health score model, a lot of this is going to be manual. As you thinking about, analyzing your churn data, looking at the commonalities and trends. A lot of that heavy lifting can be done through an AI churn intelligence solution, which we do have. So definitely, if that is of interest to you, definitely make sure you reach out to have the right conversations there. But yeah, essentially that can really do a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of looking at customer sentiment data, engagement data, but also what's changing over time and what things are most impacting your customer health and are most impacting churn. So great opportunity there to drive additional efficiency. And I think that's about it. Kate, I think we've kind of come
Yeah,
to the end.
that's it. So I think we've answered pretty much all of the questions. If there are any outstanding, feel free to pop them in the Q&A or in the chat. But if there's anything particular, potentially after the session that comes up, or you want to dive a little bit deeper, feel free to reach out to your CSM, to myself or Demiso if you don't know who that is, and we can definitely point you in the right direction. But we hope this has been really valuable in helping you being able to understand the important factors and ultimately how to build a health score. And wanted to highlight the upcoming webinar with our partner ESG. On the 21st of April from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Savings Time, they are hosting a live workshop. So they'll be looking to break down each of the different stages of building a predictive customer health score and being able to help you get hands-on to understand what is that baseline and how can we improve the accuracy of our health score. For details on how to register for that, we're going to follow up with an email later this afternoon or tomorrow with the details and the link to register. I think we've had two more questions come through. Oh, awesome. So first one is, can you potentially do me, so I'm going to ask them to you. Can you add CSAT being user data to your Totango health scores now?
That is a great question, Sean. So both Sean and Tyler, we may have to get back to you as they're both to Tango related. And so do we have recommendations on managing false positives? The one thing I'm thinking about is if you can set up a signal if you do see a change that in that product usage data to maybe just alert the CSM to take a look at that product usage data to see if it is a false positive or if that drop in usage is actually accurate and aligned with what's happening with the customer. But yeah, I might want to maybe Sean, we can follow up with you as I'll maybe find a Totango CSM to give you a more robust answer so you have clear direction on that. And Tyler, same to your question on CSAT. We'll have to confirm if that is available in the Totango platform. I know on the Catalyst side, we're looking at bringing in our own in-house CSAT NPS survey. So we'll have to just confirm if that's coming on the Totango side as well.
Yeah, awesome. I will note those down and reach out to your CSMs with those, and they can look to get back to you on the answers for those. Awesome. I think that is it. Oh, Kristen Listen has jumped in from the Totango side with some details there, and we'll follow up with those resources in the link that she shared. Well, I think that's it. Thank you, everybody, for taking out an hour of your day to join us to talk about how to build a health score and key considerations. We hope it's been valuable, and we will be looking to do this monthly. So let us know if there's particular topics that are top of mind. Otherwise, reach out to your CSMs. They are always happy to help and ensure that you're getting the most value out of the platform. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.